Right, can everyone hear me? Great, so we'll kick off. I'm going to start off with introductions for this power session. So we've got Amelia, sustainability consultant and co-founder of the Generator project. We've got Crispin Hardy, MD of Location One. We've got Tara, who's the commercial lead at Skoon. We've got Adam Baker, director at Green Voltage. And we've got Laurence Johnson, sustainability manager at Film London. So I'm just going to kick off asking everyone to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about what you do, who you're for, how you work with productions, and how and when productions should be accessing you. So Amelia, I'll start with you.
I'm Amelia Price. I have two hats, as it were. I run a business called Sustainable Film, where we work directly with productions, providing the team to work on the ground, and also do the carbon footprinting and advise on as much as we can, from power to waste management and everything in between. I'm also the co-founder of a project called the Generator project, which we co-founded last year with myself and another industry supplier on bio, and Film London, who represent 14 of the London boroughs for filming. And we basically formed the project to try and tackle the sort of the disparity between suppliers who have things like battery technology, and also the location managers on the ground, as it were, who are looking to learn more about the new technologies available and try and get everybody having the same conversation.
Great, thank you. And Crispin?
I'm Crispin. I am the founder and MD of Location One. I started in the industry as a unit manager and then location manager, and then started the business in 2008. We supply equipment to location managers and productions filming on location. So when they go and film maybe a First World War trench scene in the middle of Oxfordshire, we might supply the power, the light, the water, the infrastructure that sits behind the location, essentially. We engage mainly with unit managers and location managers, and we like to engage as early as possible on a production, but sometimes it can be a little bit last minute. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Tara?
Yes, hi, I'm Tara from Lagemaat. I am the commercial lead at Skoon, and we are an online marketplace for clean mobile energy. That means that we connect the supply in the market of clean mobile energy with the demand, for example, for film companies, but also construction companies, and also in the maritime sector. We don't own any assets ourselves. We used to, and we learned a lot from that. Potential blackouts here and there, but we learned a lot. And now we actually saw a great opportunity for Skoon to move more into the software and data side of things. So we provide support for the whole process of building an energy profile, matching the right energy system in the market, and also providing you with a great report to provide insights into your impact that you're actually making, and consolidating that on a company level to make sure that you reach your ambitious targets with regards to CO2 emissions reductions.
Okay.
I'm Adam Baker. I'm one of the co-founders of Green Voltage. We supply large-scale battery solutions and solar to film and TV sets. We assist with some power planning, and that's basically as much as we do.
Hi, I'm Laurence Johnson, Sustainability Manager at Film London. So I sit within the Production Services Department at Film London. I've been in the role for about a year. I come from industry. I was a working camera assistant for about over 10 years. We pretty much are for everyone in the industry, I would say. We work with stakeholders across the board with new technologies. I mean, in my role, really, if there is any challenge that we see within the industry related to sustainability, I'm going to look to work on that, as I say, with a real focus on production services, but also looking at things like content now as well. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. So obviously the energy and power area is a huge part of a production's carbon footprint, but these guys have solutions on how we can do it a little bit differently. Laurence, I think you've just been working on something. Could you tell us a little bit more about your fuel project?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So when I entered this role, we were looking for something really kind of tangible to kind of get involved with. And we were looking at the challenges facing the industry. And I read a report that was really talking about the role of suppliers in the transition. And also something else talking about overall we're looking about 15% greenhouse gas emissions from portable generators. And I also saw at that stage that overlapped a lot with vehicles as well, and a lot of the challenges were the same. We partnered with Creative Zero to create a report called the Fuel Project Supplier Guidance Report. And really the idea of the report is firstly to myth bust. I think there's a lot of conflicting information when you work in the sustainability space. And also we realized that suppliers who are the ones that actually own these technologies are often kind of left out of the conversation a little bit. And sometimes, we're seeing these really brilliant net zero targets from broadcasters, streamers, and we're really, really happy to see that. But the suppliers we've sometimes felt have been kind of left out of that conversation a little bit. So we really wanted to bring people into the conversation and to show that there was kind of support within the industry for collaboration, and I think that's absolutely key, is for collaboration in the industry to make sure that those suppliers who own those technologies that we all need, right, whether it's a production, whether it's a streaming service or a production company to hit those larger net zero targets, we all need the people that own and operate the equipment to have the equipment that we need to be able to meet those targets. So that was really the main focus of the report. We obviously do look at things like how you can reduce, but the main thing we wanted to do was look at some of the key technologies that are coming out now. We looked at HVO, battery power and hydrogen, and really the reasons for that being, because there are other technologies that may well hold space in the future, but we wanted to look at fuels that felt that they were already in the industry, they were already being used to a certain extent at least, and also that there was some kind of level of market maturity, that it wasn't, that it felt like it had some real relevance to the industry. And then it's about myth busting, looking what the real environmental benefits, taking a lot of that kind of heavy lifting and that work that for a supply company who, some supply companies are fantastic and they're already doing loads on this, and that's, it's really encouraging to see. Other supply companies are just at the start of this road and might not have a sustainability specific person in that organisation yet. So we want to take the heavy lifting out and deliver something that was really tangible.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. And obviously you've provided all those resources, which is great. On a practical sense, maybe Amelia, for you, if a production goes into production knowing they want to make a shift in their energy, where do they start? What's the first point they should engage?
The ultimate question, I think, at the moment is it involves so many different people, and I think everyone is repeating quite regularly here, the earlier that we get in and someone with our background gets in, the better, because we just open those conversations. And quite often now we are finding that more and more people are a lot more engaged, a lot more producers are engaged. From a practical power point of view, you need the studio managers and the location managers to be completely on board. If they're not interested, then it's a real battle to get anything done. But the earlier we come in and just start introducing them to the ideas of working with people like Adam. I think, Adam, you're selling yourself short, having achieved huge things in the industry in terms of getting people to accept electric batteries on set, because before everyone would just feel like that's never going to work. But because you're there doing it and showing them how it works, that's the biggest thing, is that actually they can see it, and then there'll be more. And most people are actually really interested and kind of going, well, yeah, I kind of want to try that. But it's having that trust element, because things like hydrogen are really unknown, and you get health and safety people looking at you just going, are you mad? But actually there's a way to do it, and it's about just giving everybody the tools and introducing to people that give them that confidence, that they don't then, oh, well, I'm just going to get a backup Jenny just in case. It's just to try and practically demonstrate to them that they can meet these people and actually go and see them being used, because we are actually seeing them more on set, so it's possible.
I think education and trust we found is really, really important, because we've been doing 2 projects recently. A lot of the stuff we supply is to the unit base, where there is typically a 100 kilowatt generator running a load of trucks throughout the day, and through the night it might be running 1 or 2 vehicles, 1 or 2 trucks. And we recognise that, yeah, that might well be at peak performance during the day, but at night it's just running, maybe some fridges in the caterer's truck, or a heater to make sure the costumes are dry overnight. And when we started thinking about batteries, we were talking to people in the industry about batteries, and they were like, oh no, it's never going to work, you can't do it, it's too much. So we put some power survey devices onto a couple of unit bases, and actually what we found was that 100k generator on both the two sets we've trialled so far, in one case, the 100k generator was producing at most 35 kilowatts of power, and the other one was peaked at 25 kilowatts. Now that one was, to be fair, those were the summer months. So in the winter we might see that shift. So I think a really key thing is making sure that people are properly speccing and sizing their generators, because as a generator supplier, it's a big thing we do. One of the most common complaints is, oh, your generator's smoking. A generator typically will smoke when you underload it, and I think the film industry are really bad at over-speccing their generators, and it's just because people don't want to be the guy or the girl that have ordered the generator that's too small and not enough, people, and therefore it will keep tripping. So people tend to over-spec the generators, which is really damaging. But to Amelia's point, education, by doing the power surveys, we've been able to actually physically show people you don't need that generator to be that size. You could do with a generator, much, much smaller. So that 100k, we put a battery on the unit base, and we managed to run the unit base off the battery for just under 50% of the period. So 50%, what was 100% generator, we managed to do hybrid about 50-50. But yeah, it's education and giving people confidence.
I think from a production point of view, a lot of the feedback we get is on how do we know it's reliable, but also on cost. Adam, I don't know if this is something you can talk a little bit to, if we as production managers are trying to sell the idea of different types of fuel.
Talking to what we're talking about there, it's about smart power planning. It's about understanding exactly how much power is actually being pulled initially, and we find that a lot of teams will be putting generators in for a sense of redundancy. We can see tech trucks running no more than 3 amps with a 60 kVA generator on it, because we know that all that's on there is a set of radios, but we've always done it in the same way. So we're sort of we're trying to dial down and get people's confidence to allow a battery to run it. We recently run a production and took it off grid for 2 days in central London because we provided 5 kilowatt units for the tech trucks. We provided 100 kilowatt battery supplies for craft and recycled them. And for 2 days we didn't have anything running. And in a residential area on the edge of a Peabody estate inside a school over the weekend, it gave us that opportunity to take that location on from 5 a.m. in the morning without any complaints, let alone the fact that obviously we're being sustainable. Nobody's coming out of their house screaming and shouting that there's a generator running directly underneath their house. Now that happened because we were there, we made it happen, we worked with everybody that was on site, we did a bit of planning prior to that, we checked to see what the grips had on their trucks, we did a little bit more sort of management ahead of time to make sure that we were there to give people the confidence and redundancy. Everybody will look at it and think, oh, well, obviously it's going to cost a lot more money. They actually saved money. So Mark Clements, who was the location manager on that particular event, came back to me and said, apart from the fact I don't stink diesel, we've actually saved a few quid because I've off-hired 10 generators, I've got 4 on backup, I haven't switched them on at all, and I've got 1 running at unit base that did a bit of the recharge and the swap around. I mean, craft alone, we think, every time it's been specified, it's 20 kilowatts straight off the bat. If you watch it, it depends how many smoothies you're making all day long, obviously, and how close to the plot you are. If they're off round the back there, nobody can be asked. But it was running between 14 kilowatt and 2 kilowatt, and then it ran overnight. And there was also that conversation of, do you need to leave the coffee machine on overnight to save the hour in the morning? And we managed to convince them to turn it off, which was, in fact, I've got my timer plug. But it's simple things like that that help us to be able to do something a little bit more sustainable. And that was a demonstration, that's a great example of switching jennies off for 48 hours. But we have other examples where we just simply look after stuff overnight. And across a long run, it's huge. The fuel saving alone, we all know about fuel going up in price. And if we can get the strategy right, and we can get it in the right place, and it can take over quite a lot of power in that sense, then yeah, you can save money quite easily.
Your point, Adam, about going into doing a bit of hand-holding is really important. We did on one of the first night we did the power survey. I think overnight on the job we're doing right now actually in Bristol, we noticed through the nights that it was running about 18 kilowatts. So we spoke to the facilities captain before wrap last night and said, your nighttime loads are quite high. your weekend's really low. Could you just go around to each of the trailers tonight and just check that everything's turned off? And he did that. And I think he turned off like 6 heaters that were on thermostats and a load of lights. And we got that 18 kilowatt nighttime run down to about 8. If you can get Adam will contest this. If you can get that power curve right down, that's when the battery can really do some work, isn't it? When you can get that really nice and low.
And this is something that you found as well, Laurence, wasn't it? That you talk about in your fuel project. It's not just about switching your energy, it's about reducing your energy. That's where the key savings are going to be.
100%. And I think just slightly going back to what you're saying, I totally agree with that. And something we talk about in the report is, again, this is for suppliers, but I think you can look at it from a production perspective as well. We talk about total cost of ownership. So when you're looking at a piece of technology, total cost of ownership is the purchase price plus the cost of running it based on the fuel. What we've traditionally seen, obviously that cost has to be passed on to production. So you could call it, I suppose, like a total cost of hire, perhaps, right? Traditionally, we've looked at it in terms of hire of the generator comes from one budget line and the fuel comes from another budget line. And what we need to do is move away from that and look at what is the total cost across the production, because very quickly you have a completely different perspective on it. Because currently, if we keep doing the way that it has been done, you're constantly giving that benefit to the fossil fuel equivalent. In terms of reductions, 100%. I think this is about recording the data. At Film London, we have our grid project, which is launching very, very soon. And we are really looking forward to that because it's all going to be connected to the grid. So it's an electric distribution box, which is going to be powering unit bases in Victoria Park. You won't be able to use diesel generators on site. We will have all the recording of data in half an hour measurements for the entire process, day, night, in and out. So again, we need that information so we can see those reductions and like the rest of the panel have said, bring the reductions down as well.
Yeah, I totally agree, Laurence. It's really hard for someone on a production to choose whether or not to use a clean energy system if you have these different budget lines. And if you look at the battery system, for example, it just looks so expensive. But indeed, if you deduct the fuel costs, it can be even cost competitive. Even you can earn a bit of money, or a lot, actually. So what we are developing is a lot of tools to help and to equip the people on the production to calculate their own energy parameters, so to translate what's happening on set, all the site parameters. Do you have a grid connection? How many cameras are you going to use? What type of kit are you going to use? And we translate that back into a power profile, and then you can look at all the different applications that you have: hybrid, only an island mode battery system, or a diesel generator, and you can make that really insightful to production, and then it should be a no-brainer to choose for a clean energy system.
Mm-hmm. And can you talk a little bit more about, is it Skoon? Skoon?
Skoon, yeah.
Sharing platform and how it's making it easier for people to understand and access the different options.
Yeah, so Skoon sharing is, as I said, an online marketplace, and it makes insightful, or it shows how many available systems there are in the market. Because a lot of different clean energy suppliers don't have the full range of all the battery and clean energy systems that a production might need. So a production might need a rollable battery or a container battery. So these a whole range of different solutions. And from the marketplace, with Skoon, we can make that comprehensive package of different clean energy solutions, and we can create the right setup for all these systems, and we offer them as one offer to you, such that you don't have to work with so many different suppliers, and we can create a full and comprehensive package. And we want to equip the productions with all the right tools and to be able to filter on their energy needs and the site parameters. And there's, in that way, always an available system in the market for every project.
Great. We touched, oops, sorry. Hello. We've got questions at the end, just because then we can give you a microphone if that's easier. Just to go back quickly, we kind of touched on some of the benefits. Obviously, there's the energy consumption benefit of changing your fuel. But can you talk a little bit more about the other benefits? We touched on, obviously, giving access to locations that we might not usually be able to film. But also, Laurence, I know you did a lot of work on kind of air pollution.
Yeah, for sure. So actually, when we started the report, that was one of the key drivers, was about greenhouse gas savings, but also air quality emissions. So in London, we lose about 4,000 people per year die through poor air quality in London alone. So obviously, battery technologies, non-fossil technologies, we have that particulate matter, those emissions reductions. And also, as you touched upon, I think that moving away from the health, but also noise. You know, we've now heard of productions who are getting to shoot in locations they never got to shoot in before because diesel generators simply weren't allowed there. So it's quiet and it's the health of your crew. And I think, you know, we need to start focusing on health of the crew. I've been on plenty of sets where I've been back on the truck and I've got a diesel generator blasting in my face while I'm working as hard as I can to get the truck packed up. And frankly, it's, you know, there are better ways for us to work. So it's, you know, it's emissions, but it's health, and it's actually better ways of working.
Mm-hmm. And one of the, you kind of had a stark figure in your report that only 12.5 diesel generators are stage 5 compliant. Can you tell us what that means?
So stage 5, I mean, I'm sure Amelia, that comes from the work Amelia's done. I don't know if you want to take that or you.
Yeah, it's actually the biggest reason that so few of them are stage 5 is because that is the latest in generator technology. And actually, Adam and Crispin will probably tell you the really technical stuff, but essentially they are generators that are available that have been made in the last couple of years. So that's one of the reasons the pandemic has had a huge impact on suppliers such as Crispin trying to get those newer batteries into kind of for us to use and for them to be available. Obviously, you know, we all heard about supply chain issues and that was affecting absolutely everything. They are more efficient. They use more AdBlue. I'm hearing quite a lot of people kind of going, oh, actually, yes, we use less fuel because they're more efficient, but there's a whole other world of stuff that we need to think about as well. But it's one of those things, it's great to have the newer models and ones that are more efficient, but again, it's sort of, they're still not going to be the be-all and end-all.
The interesting thing about the stage 5 is, they're really hard to get hold of. The supply chain issues are difficult. But also, because of the AdBlue, the way the AdBlue works, if you underload them, the AdBlue crystallises and they will stop. It will turn itself off, essentially. So that's where the hybrid technology will really help, because if you can hook that generator up to a battery, it won't do any low loads, because as soon as the loads get low enough, the battery will take over. So you can take that problem away. But yeah, they are coming into the industry, but they're...
Currently, construction industry, if they're in central London, they have to have stage 5 generators, which from the conversations we're having with the London boroughs, that's probably going to hit us fairly soon. We fly under the radar because we're quite often not in a place for very long, but it's probably only a matter of time.
And also just to add, so they're also looking at kind of retrofits now for some of the diesel generators to bring them up to that stage 5 compliance. But I think, you know, that the fact that other industries are already having to abide by these higher standards of emissions, you know, as you say, I think it is a matter of time, and it's also a matter of principle that we should get ahead of that.
So I think this space can be quite confusing to people. Obviously, we're talking at Albert to people every day on different types of fuel. I had someone email me the other day and say, what do you think of nuclear fuel? I'm like, oh, I think it's good. I don't know if someone can give a little bit of a rundown on the options that are available and, you know, where they're most appropriate to use, because I think that is, like you say, the biggest obstacle is a lack of understanding of where to even start.
I think cost is a huge one. I mean, all of our generators have been. We only supply with HBO, and we've done that for the last 2 years. This year, we fill all our vehicles with HBO as well. Around other, you know, hydrogen, etc. I mean, I know it's very expensive. I'm not sure if anyone on the panel has got much, you know, does much with hydrogen. Have you done much?
I got a quote yesterday actually, but it's.
But it needs to be green as well, though, doesn't it? It needs to be green hydrogen because hydrogen
exactly
is created by using a lot of energy to create the hydrogen anyway. So we're losing 40% as we create it. But if we use solar sort of supplies, then it becomes a green energy, and then that can supply hydrogen, which is a great opportunity to bring something to set that can do it. It's a large scale production. Isn't it?
You need a bit more space for the hydrogen.
Just a tad.
Yeah.
But I think you asking the question is already the challenge, right? So there's so many different technologies in the market. Even if you look at batteries, I think we all know there are solid-state batteries, there are salt batteries, there are LFP batteries, and they all are great, but you need to find the right solution and the right project for every system. So you need to really good understand the application and to be able to match the right system to the right project.
And you know, you're all doing really good work in terms of creating these resources for the industry, but if a production team wanted to know where to start, is there any way you could suggest that they go and read about different fuels? Where do you get your information?
The Generator project does have a very good resources page, which does sort of separate out the different fuel types. It's something that we're quite regularly kind of trying to update, because again, it just moves really quickly. You have to I'd spend a lot of time trying to find a PA who's got a spare couple of hours to go, can you just go and research this thing? Because it is a huge topic. And yes, it's kind of about finding the right people, but our website's very handy as a starting point.
Great.
I would obviously also say, in addition to that, you should read the Fuel Project Supplier Guidance Report. We do give a breakdown of hydrogen, battery, and HVO. Some of the key themes, particularly concerns, for example, around each of those fuels, as you've already touched upon. For example, with HVO, which is a fuel that we do support, but we support it when sourced in the right way. Sourcing is really, really key. I won't go into all the reasons why, but how HVO is sourced is absolutely vital to whether it's actually beneficial for the climate or not. And if you source the cheapest, furthest HVO you can source, the chances are it could be worse than diesel. So it's with a real caveat, but we do support it, source locally, and then also concerns around hydrogen and battery technologies. So I would suggest have a read in there. We do a little summary.
Okay, so read the Fuel Project, read the Generator Project.
I don't think we're going to see any nuclear reactors on set.
No. Forest has gone now, so.
Yeah, well, yeah. I don't think the Royal Parks will let us take them in there.
I think there's going to be quite a lot of questions on this, so I'll leave a good 10 minutes. But is there any last things that anyone wanted to say on production power?
My one thing I would say is just start looking for the change. What we need is collaboration in the industry. This, for me, is the number one. My number one takeaway would be we need collaboration. I don't think this is going to happen with everyone working in silos. I think suppliers, talk to your production teams. Have conversations. Are you thinking about this? Production teams, have conversations with your suppliers. One of the things that we're interested in supporting, seeing whether this is a new way of working is, and we are hearing this happening already. For example, streaming service or production companies, can you take out a long-term agreement with a supplier that means that their initial upfront investment is a safer bet for them? That they know, well, I've got 2 years that I'm going to be getting X coming in, I can pay off that. Mm-hmm. So collaboration, start having conversations and start making some change. It doesn't need to be perfect. It probably won't be perfect. And you won't always get what you want. But start having the conversations. That's how we'll drive things forward.
Yeah, and it's really important that happens early, because like you're saying, legislation is changing. We're going to be pushed this way. We might as well get ahead of it.
I think if execs can build this sort of stuff into their budgets, it would really help, because and Adam will probably say the same. Everyone loves the idea, but you get to the nitty-gritty of the numbers, and they can be quite difficult sometimes around the numbers. And then when you get the chance to prove it, actually, they go, oh, okay, yeah, no, it works. It's okay, actually. But I think, you need champions at the top of the food chain to really drive this stuff through.
I think one takeaway from it is that if you're going to use renewable energy in any format on a location or anywhere, you're going to need a strategy behind it. But it's not that complex to work out. It's not that much effort to go through and make it happen. It can be done quite simply. It's tried and tested amongst all of us for several years, and it's coming. We've got to change it. We've got to do something for the amount of waste that we've got. And if it gives us the advantage of locations and more work that we can do on set, then it's got to be a good thing.
And I'd say start small and gather the data and show, so I've heard already, see that you don't need a supersized generator to power your full set. You can do it easily with a small battery that can also supply your power at night, and look at the data and make sure that you can replicate it over time with many, many productions.
Amelia, last words to the production community?
It's probably sort of the budget issue, actually, as well. Even now I get location managers going, oh, well, have you got money in your budget for batteries? I'm like, no, because I'm not here to power your set. And it's just about getting that stuff in early, and they always go, oh, well, why am I paying money for this? It's the fuel budget. I'm saving money from the fuel budget. It's not my budget. And we just need to totally re-look at how we're structuring our budgets, because at the moment it doesn't really work.
Great, thank you very much. So we've got a few minutes for questions now. Got a few hands up, I think at the back. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Lorena Wright. I'm a production executive at Mammoth Screen, and I write those budgets that you're talking about. So I just wanted to say that we are really trying, and particularly myself and Susanna, who's my colleague at Mammoth, we are really trying to be more sustainable and looking at it. One of the things that I frequently get frustrated with is transport. We probably spend about £250,000 per season on every single one of our shows on single-use occupancy cars to travel cast, minibuses times 6 every day, tech trucks. And I wondered within your space if you are going to extend this conversation into that space, because to my mind, we are seeing fully electric taxis, fully electric fleets of cars on the road at the moment. And I'm just wondering if that is an area that we need to extend over into our industry. And just also to say as well that when I did a cost comparison for HVO versus diesel, because obviously I did look at it for Endeavour this year, the last series of Endeavour, it was just so prohibitively expensive that I couldn't get it through with the higher ups above me who are signing off that line. So I think the conversations need to be had a little bit more in depth.
I think the HVO price now, comparative to the white diesel price, it has come down a lot.
15p at the moment.
Yeah.
We check it. Yeah, we check it weekly on a production where exactly that. We got sign off. It took probably 2 months on a large show with a reasonable budget, and it took me literally sitting down with all of the execs and the producers, and we looked at the numbers, and it was terrifying, the difference, but they've made commitments, but it needed that top-level network buy-in, and that's how we've got it through. But we do check every single week what the prices of diesel against what the HVO is, and they've basically said if it stays within 20p, you're fine, keep as you are. At the moment it's about 15p, but it does seem to be sort of steadying at that as well, thankfully.
I don't know how many productions are doing this at the moment, whether or not you're doing it, but the Crown who are working with are offsetting their carbon, and actually, although the HVO is more expensive, once you've taken the offsetting of the white diesel into account, actually it sort of balances out a lot more as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and also to say, talk to your HVO supplier about EX55, which is you can basically reclaim the fuel duty for the amount. This is only for electricity generation. It's not for vehicles, but for electricity generation. Now, it can be complicated, so do talk to your fuel provider before to see if they can help you with it. But I've had conversation with production companies. They've actually said they did the maths and it actually worked out cheaper than diesel if they did the EX55 claim back, because you can get 100% of the fuel duty back. Just to touch on vehicles. So the fuel project, we look at both generators and vehicles, specifically because the challenges are, there's a lot of overlap. Challenges around supplies of batteries, challenges around hydrogen, etc. A lot of it's the same challenges. So do have a look at that report. 50% of the report is about vehicles. Again, a lot of it's looking at those larger vehicles, not so much personal vehicles. We do talk about personal travel, but the real emissions are coming in from land transport, from your trucks and all of that. So we do a lot of work with that, talking about suppliers, about how we can reduce those emissions as well. Into
their contracts that they get an individual single occupancy vehicle to travel, and I think we need to start talking about cultural changes that we need to make within the industry, where we actually reframe how people think about their positions, if you like, within the industry and how that impacts environmentally as well.
Also engaging with cast on that conversation and actually asking them the question before their agent automatically puts it in their contract, and then you've got the transport manager going, but I've been told I've got to have 6 unit cars. And
I'm talking about twice weekly, 200-mile round trips times 5 for our top-flight cars in individual vehicles. I think it's an area of the industry that needs a lot of investigation.
And as well as cost, we need to think where we're setting productions. If you're setting it in a really remote location, it's going to have a huge impact on your travel emissions as well.
I was just wondering, have you considered using a large battery paired with that diesel generators that you deployed on the set? Because I can imagine that we did a great project with ITV Studios where we paired a large battery with the same size generator, and we could reduce the fuel up to 50%. So that also means that you have 50% less movements to get the fuel to the set. And also we could reduce the sound emissions with 70% because the generator would run a lot less. Was that something that you considered in the conversation as well? Let's have a chat.
Thank you. I think we had a question at the front.
I know most of the people on the panel. I'm a location manager, so
Do you want the microphone?
I deal directly with a lot of the people here, and I think planning is actually one of the biggest issues. And I think, Adam, you can probably talk, because we were on a film together in the summer, and the electrical department pretty much ran on green voltage, even with the night shoots. We had an Oscar-winning DP, and we had a lot of lights, but your department ran...
I mean, it won't so much that. There's obviously some generators that were used in certain areas because the DP wanted a 200 kilowatt lamp, but there's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah, but your department were very good. My department, on the other hand, were not so good, and I think that's partly about confidence. You were
But they got better, right? So
we got better.
As we always say, so it doesn't work in the first week, it doesn't work in the second week, but by the third week, we all start getting it together, and it starts to, people understand, they get the confidence to use them in those areas.
But you were on set.
Yeah, it does.
And actually, it really, if we can have someone from Green Voltage on set, then everyone's going to actually understand it and trust it.
Yeah. I've always said, the smart power planning side of things, if I could add a person into Amelia's team and they could do all of that side of it and then be on location as your power sort of person that says, hold on a second, switch off that 7K, I'll give you this. Like, we had a situation the other day, and, we're there. My day job is to be a lighting programmer, not to talk it down, but I'm there so I can see what's happening. And we had just an access point running off of a 7K Honda. It's probably no more than 20 watts. So just giving them an opportunity to swap it out, and we had the products there, was great because you're not just thundering away next to
But our unit bases are pulling more power than the Sparks are these days. I mean, every trailer's pulling 232s.
Yeah,
and you've got 10, 15 of those.
That's just it. They're not pulling that amount of power. So the camera truck is a great example. They've got 3 lots of 32 amp single phase coming off of them, and they're not pulling more than 4 amps. And it's it can easily be managed, but it's recharging batteries, and it's an area of redundancy that we need to make sure is there. So like if we don't recharge camera batteries, then we're all in trouble.
Any mileage in putting solar panels on the top of the trucks?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there
are some trucks. We're working with a company at the moment, and they are starting to build.
They're all there.
Trucks.
There is.
That's just like acres of solar panel room.
That's it. Yeah. Well, we work with a company in Madrid, and they. I'm not exactly sure what the legislation is, but they can't drive trucks into central Madrid anymore between certain hours. So they've electrified all their vehicles, and they've put larger scale battery packs inside them as well, so they can get up and running in the morning before that curfew ends. And that they've been forced into that position. Budgets have had to kind of fit what they're doing because there is no other opportunity unless they go outside of that area. But they suddenly realise that it's workable. It's manageable. Once it's in place and they've put the money to it, it can be done, and it actually sort of ends up saving them in the long run.
Great. I think that's all we've got time for now. All of you will be around if anyone's got specific questions for our panellists, though, so thank you so much.